Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Build a Beast. We are sharing a live coaching journey with you guys live on air every week. We've been tapping into 8 essential pillars mastering the energy equation. We've got an elite high performance coach here that's been sharing his time and his talent and his strategies with us week to week. And this week, we're going to be talking about controlling your environment and managing your stress. This can be a bottomless pit, pulling us different directions and consuming and stealing a lot of our energy. So I'm excited to get into this week's episode for how you guys can reduce stress and control your environment. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and welcome to another episode of Build a Beast. Let's just bring in our superstar coach of the season, Justin Roethlingshoefer. Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much, man. How are you doing, Travis?
All is well. Continued progress throughout this journey. We've been having simplified homework and nice lanes to operate within each week. For those of you that have been on this journey with us, feel free to jump in the chat and join this experience with us. Share your questions, share your data, share your information, or any concerns you have. This whole journey is about finding what works for you. And Justin has really done a great job of being able to shift his language and provide practical, real examples for people and their situation, meeting them in their world. So, thank you so much. All is well in this world. Can't complain, and looking forward to another week, man.
I love it. And to be honest with you, it's I love where we're going this week, because obviously we took a little hiatus last week. I was traveling out west, and we go back into this environmental side that we're diving into today, and the environment that we're in. And there's a couple things that we're going to dive into here that really transcend and transform the way in which we're able to show up and the energy that we're able to provide on a day-to-day basis. And oftentimes we don't take the environment we're in into enough consideration when we're thinking about stress and stress optimization, stress management. And what I mean by that is, remember, everything comes back to HRV. Is however we're measuring it, whether it's with the Oura Ring, the Whoop Band, the BioStrap, the Apple Watch, Fitbit, you name it. It all comes back to HRV, because HRV is that deep internal measure of stress that's going on in our body: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. We talked about that in episode 1, and that all of these factors around us are impacting that. Now, when we come back to environment, there are some key things that we want to talk about today. And number one is the environment in which you are working. And I just want to talk about that working environment for a second, because so many of us are having to now shift our work environments from what was a temporary home situation for a month, and that month turned into a year and 14 and 15 and 16 months. And now it may be permanent. Or we have gone back and slowly shifted back into the office realm. And I'm going to pick on myself here for a second. I'm up here. I've got this beautiful space. It's awesome in terms of how it's large, it's clean, it's beautifully set up, but it's extremely dark. There is only one skylight, which is exactly above me. It's about 4 feet wide and 5 feet long. It's a rectangle, but that's the only light in this entire space. And it's about a 900 square foot upstairs to our walk up in New York City. And the issue with that is the second floor and the basement, or the ground floor of where we are, is extremely light. But this is where I set up my office to work. So in being exposed to natural light, that gives our body a natural lift in vitamin D. Vitamin D is a natural, it's going to produce serotonin. It's going to produce the happy drug. It's going to produce cortisol, what
Yeah.
gives us energy.
Yep.
And so if we're not naturally exposed to, remember what we talked about in hindering our sleep as well, blue light. Blue light is what comes from the sun, comes from the sky, but it also is artificially produced by our computers. So what happens is if we're not naturally exposed to this light during the day, our body's natural rhythm of serotonin as well as cortisol gets disrupted. We get tired, we get fatigued, we get in this lull that is very difficult to come out of because we're not experiencing the rhythmic hormonal releases that we should, because the environment is not optimized. We were just talking about your environment there back in your studio, about how awesome it is. It's a cool setup. But I don't think you have windows in there.
I have a window, but I had to contain the chaos because what happens over here is this situation where it just blasts out, and it's actually an overcast day. So it's even worse when it's sunny.
Got it. So my question would be, is on days that you're not broadcasting, do you keep that open?
Yeah, the blackout curtains are opened. I try to stay semi-human. Don't go too far down the vampire spectrum. But yeah, it is controlling it and shifting it each depending on context.
And that becomes extremely important, because all of a sudden, if you are in a confined dark space, your circadian rhythm, the way in which you sleep, your overall HRV level, the stress level that was going to hit more on the emotional, spiritual, and mental side, is going to have a massive toll on our body. There was a study done, and it was done with one of the few remaining Indian tribes over in their native land. And it looked at the energy expenditure. One of the straight hunting and gathering tribes that exist in the world today. And they compared the energy output of them to the energy output of a typical Western worker. And these people, remember, are hunting and gathering their food all day long. That's what they're doing compared to us. And when we took a look at the energy expenditure, what did you think it said?
That it was correlated.
What a lot of people would say is that the people who are hunting and gathering their food, constantly moving to try and find it,
yeah,
have a higher energy expenditure than the average person sitting at home today.
Yeah.
But actually, the energy expenditure of both were equal.
No.
The energy expenditure of both were equal. And the reason being is because for us, the strain of what was going on mentally, physically, and emotionally, not physically, was so high compared to them that the energy expenditure, remember, the energy expenditure in a body is dependent on those four categories: stress, physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental. And as you go through those, you have to take a look at the surrounding environment in which you're in. And so with the hunters and gatherers, yes, they were probably not taking in as many calories. That's why they're lean. That's why they're fit. That's why they're doing those things. But we are not expending physically the same amount of energy, but mentally, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, we're at a heightened level. And so being able to balance that and being able to figure it out through our environment becomes so key. And these we'll go back to the quote unquote biohacks of being able to hop in and truly optimize what we're doing at a very great level. And a lot of it has to do with the sunlight that we're getting. The very simple thing that I tell every single person, I know I talked to you about this as we were going through your stuff over the last couple of weeks, was first thing in the morning when the sun rises. And because we've turned the clocks ahead for daylight savings time, this has become easier for us. So when the sun rises, the first thing we want to do is get within the first 30 minutes of the sun rising is we want to get direct sunlight exposure. So direct sunlight exposure on our skin, on our eyes, on our face, because we have what's called photoreceptors in through our skin. Even when we close our eyes, we have photoreceptors that are receiving this information. And what it's doing is it's resetting the way in which our body is producing cortisol, producing melatonin.
Yep.
And remember, when melatonin is high, cortisol is low. When cortisol is high, melatonin is low. And so they are inverse relations of one another. So getting sunlight the first thing in the morning is so, so important, especially throughout the day in our environment. So if you're in an environment like me where at 5 o'clock on an afternoon on a clear sunny day, I need to have lights on behind me in order to not make it feel dark, I have a timer set that for the last 10 minutes of every hour, I'm going downstairs, I'm going for a walk, I'm going outside, I'm taking my dog for 2 walks a day for 20, 30 minutes. I'm making sure I'm getting out into the sunlight. I'm making sure I'm going for a run. I'm making sure I'm seeing the sun first thing in the morning, making sure I'm going for going to see the sunset at night out on the balcony, on the porch, and trying to get exposed to these types of things because I don't have it naturally. So you have to have the intention and the awareness of that throughout the day. Otherwise, you'll go down a dark road really, really quickly. The second thing is making sure, again, and I know we've heard this in the past, but noise pollution. And in New York City, there is a lot of that. A lot of that, from the cars honking to people moving to just people everywhere. So what we should do, again, is being aware of the noise around us. I know a lot of times I've got a dog, you've got dogs. The incessant barking can add added stress to us. Babies incessantly crying, 3 or 4 meetings going on around us. If we're on the busy street, hearing constant noise from the cars, all of these things start to cause us anxiety and, again, affect our HRV. And it may even be something that we've gotten used to, that our mind or that our mental awareness has started to push away, but it's still there. We are still taking it in. It's still having an effect on how we are operating. So the more focused we can be on who's around us, the sounds that are there, the noises that are being made, and we can block it out. And again, we talk about this in our sleep one, in the sleep environment, is with the white noise machine. Have it with us during the day as well. Something that at least brings up this notion that we can be relaxed and focused, but have something block out all of those other noises that are going on. So it, again, helps us get into that flow state much easier, much more fluid, much more on point. The third thing that we need to be cognizant of in the environment is temperature. And a lot of times, again, we think about building capacity, building stress capacity on our bodies. Our bodies were not meant to be in one stagnant temperature all the time. It's meant to adjust. And the more that we can adjust, the better. That's why, again, why do you think in times of season changes, people are getting sick more often? It's because we have not trained our bodies to adapt to the changes in temperature. You see people who do cold tubs, you see people who do saunas, steam rooms, extreme temperature exposures. They don't get sick as often. It's not because there's magic in the hot tub or magic in the sauna or the steam room or the cold tub. It's that it's training our bodies to understand what these different stresses are like in different situations. And so for us to sleep, our room, and I know I've talked about this before in the sleep time, the environment that we are sleeping in should 100% be between 62 and 68 degrees.
Wow.
Now, when we are sitting here in a normal day, we should, again, be somewhere between 66 and 72 degrees and shifting it and changing it. And now I know some people are like, well, I work outside or I work in an office where it's stable. No worries, no problem.
Sure.
That's where you should be utilizing the cold tubs midday, or the cold tubs at night, or the cold tubs before you get to work in the morning, to alter the environment that you're in so your body has to adapt. You're growing the range, the diversity of what you're exposing yourself to on a day-to-day basis. And that, again, is where the environment that you're situated in is going to be more advantageous to you as you continue to grow, as you continue to push your body and expose yourself to these different things. Just like when we were in talking about our sleep time, where we want it completely blacked out, we want it cold, we want it dark, and we almost want the opposite during the day. We want it light, we want it bright, we want it a little bit warmer, we want to be able to move and engage in these things. And as you shift through this, again, it is going to push you to different levels to improve that HRV, to improve that focus, to improve that clarity of mind through it. The last one, and this is one of my most favorite, and it comes back to productivity, is what is around you that is going to diverge your focus. Because a lot of us have these things all around.
Oh, baby. Yeah, the danger zone.
Big time. Or we have our email browsers up, or we have our fridge right next to us, or there's so many things that are within our easy grasps that we just start bouncing around and bouncing around. And as we bounce around, we no longer become focused and present on what we're doing. And that starts to induce more and more stress on us, because we're not getting the change in what we're looking for. We're not getting the ability to focus and stay up on everything. I'll give you that example of me going out west. And I broke about every environmental rule out there. And I'll pull up my data here if you and kind of show you guys. I'm gonna give Travis a break here, because it was too the data from mine over the last little bit was just too amazing not to show you guys when we talk about environment. But this, if you can see my screen, right, Travis?
Indeed. Yep. Let us know on the chat end if you're seeing the screen share, but it should be all good from what I'm seeing.
So if I open up my data for the last 3 months, if you see this, you see how many rain days there are. A lot. Like I was really dialed in over the last, call it since January 27th, right up until about we left on March 10th. But then you went and look at March 10th. You can even go out 1 month. Actually, we'll just go right up to March 10th. I like that. But look at how everything became yellow, 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 red, yellow, yellow, yellow. And to be honest with you, Travis, it started to crush me. It absolutely started to crush me, because not only did I have a time change, which was fine. Wow. I kept the Eastern time zone, but I'm doing work in a hotel room. I'm doing a work in a hotel room in LA, where there's constant noise, there's constant movement. Yep. Just very similar to New York City, but in New York City, we were in a little bit of a community, in the West Village, a little quieter. But you go now to West Hollywood, and there's stuff going on. There's stuff moving. It's an unfamiliar space to me. My fiance and I are sharing the hotel room, so there's people moving. You have to be aware of different things. Yeah. I started to work down in the lobby, and people are coming in. You're worried about where things are going to go, how things are going to do. So all of these environmental things started to affect that, and also in my HRV. And we look at the HRV over the course of the month, and we see the drastic downturn. We even see it we even take a look at it over the 3 months. And we see, again, slow decline in terms of that whole trend. It's a downward trend. And it comes back to the same point of a lot of it had to do with environmental factors. I wasn't training any differently. I wasn't eating any differently. My sleep obviously was affected because of the time change, but I was still getting 6.5, 7.5 hours of sleep every night. And in doing that, it was and again, going back to the temperature side, is I didn't have my cold tub accessible to me. I didn't have a pool accessible to me because it was closed there due to COVID.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things that were out of the norm of what I was able to do. And actually on this day, you see this Thursday right here,
Yes,
we
indeed.
landed back in New York City, and I woke up this morning to lead our group workout, and we weren't in we didn't have everything available that we needed in for the workout that morning. I woke up, I started the group off, did a little warm up, did a little yoga flow, and I looked at Elise and I said, I can't do this. You have to finish, because physically,
Wow.
mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I was just so fried. And that's fried from, call it, a week and a half of pure yellow recoveries, or if you're talking about HRV, plummeting down to 71, when typically my average is about
Wow.
100. That's where I live. And all of a sudden you're getting 71, 75, 77, 82, 77, 78, like, and having that constantly, that wear on you, it goes to show what happens. And so all of a sudden over that weekend when I was home and we got back, I was like, you know what? I just need to completely settle myself down and come back to what's normal.
Sure.
And I got back to my routine. I got back to my environment. And this week it's completely changed, like completely changed.
Wow.
77, 78. I've got my first two greens back to back, again, increasing my physical output. So I would expect to see some of that change. But again, the next Monday, 93, then 81, 89, 79. Like, we're on an upward trajectory since getting home. And that's not a surprise, simply based upon the focus that you put upon the environment in which you're in. And so often we forget this key ingredient, which is environment. When you're traveling and when the world's opening back up and we're going to start traveling, how are you going to impact and how are you going to empower the environments that you're in to truly make sure that you're doing what is right for you, and
Mhm.
ensuring that as we look at what's right for you, that you travel with the necessary things, or you book your hotels in the appropriate places, or you pre-set up certain precautions. Do you bring earplugs with you in certain places? Do you have a designated spot where you're going to be going and working? Do you know these things? Do you have them already done? And if you can control your environment, these are often things within our control. That's what's so key. And to know about this is the 8 things, these 8 pillars that we're talking about are things that we control directly. You can't control the outcomes. We can't control the destinations quite often,
Sure.
but we can control the day. We can control the certain items, things
Mhm.
like your environment, things like your hydration, things like your nutrition, things like your sleep, things like your immune function, all things that we've gone over, your environment, things that we've gone over that ultimately lead to your ability to build capacity to handle the stress that's going to come and go based upon the things that life throw at you. When you're in a situation, when you're out working in this beautiful situation right now, like I've got this awesome desk, I've got more than enough space. I can literally stand on one side of the wall and have a catcher over here, and we can play little league up in our in the size of this room in New York City. You don't often have the luxury of that, and especially in a city like this. But what we're saying is, in doing that, I now have control about what's in my environment. I have control to go downstairs. Now, if it's overcast outside, if my dog comes up and is barking up here, do I have control over those things? No. But because I've gone out, I've gotten my sunlight throughout the day, because I've blocked out a lot of the noise, because I've created a sanctuary for myself,
Mhm.
those things are not going to push me over the edge. And thus, we can make sure that we're setting ourselves up to have the big cup, a large capacity to handle a lot of things. And that's what this is all about, guys. That's what this has been about since day
Mm.
one, is how do we grow capacity to handle different things that happen day to day? And a lot of it is controlling our environment. Who's around us? Who are we listening to? What kind of music are we listening to? What kind of podcasts are we listening to? What kind of people are in our environment? What's the temperature of our environment? What's the sunlight situation in our environment? What are we looking at? What's the light situation in our environment? Is it dull, just straight lamps, or is it high LED lights, or is it floodlights that are like in the back of your room? We want high energy lights, and that's where we can go into the research of what are we setting up.
Wow. Yeah.
And the moment that we start to control our environments, and I think we've taken it for granted for a long time, especially over this last year of being in quarantine all the time, is that our environment plays such a massive role in our mood and our health and our overall wellness and the way in which we show up. And the moment that we can change that, the moment that we can get true appreciation to the amount of stress and strain that our environment places on us, we're going to put the focus where it needs to be, which is back on what do we need to do to make sure that our environment is best for us. Go back right back to it. Do we want a stand-up desk or a sit-down desk? Do we do it in between? Like, there's so much that comes into this, and I'd love for people to ask questions about their environment, because this is what you and I had talked about going back to you is you being out in Colorado. You've got the
Mhm.
beautiful sunlight. I mean, you've got more sunlight than any other place in the United States.
Could
You've
probably
got
use a little more of that too.
you've you've got amazing access to sunlight. You've got amazing access to quality weather. You've got amazing access to um, high quality air, and it's now being able to set your day up so that the environment that you're in starts to get utilized, starts to get maximized. And that's the key point, is the moment that you do that, it's going to give you the ability to, again, put yourself in a situation to decrease the stress load on your body, increase the capacity to handle stress, and thus increase that HRV and long-term performance in a consistent manner.
Mm. No, the key pieces I'm curious about now would be in this formula or this equation. There's obviously so many factors that we are aware of and aren't aware of. You mentioned controllables and uncontrollables. Do you have like perhaps a prioritized ranking of controllables? What are just to make this as digestible one step at a time? What would be the top three or top few factors as far as priority of it and its potential impact on your stress, your sleep, or whatever? What would be the top things that we can control and we should focus on optimizing first if we were only able to pick a few?
Yeah, so are you asking about the controllables of the 8 that we're talking about in terms that affect HRV, or are you talking about
Ooh.
the highest priority controllables in terms of environment?
Uh, for now, because we're on the environment episode, let's just stick with environment. But would love to see, yeah, on that macro level, the 8 pillars. Maybe we can just revisit those in a quick moment after this,
Sure. Yeah,
to
absolutely.
kind of recap anybody that's joining the party late. But for now, yeah, maybe in controlling our environment and managing stress, what are the biggest wins or
Yeah,
lowest hanging fruit?
number 1 hands down is sunlight. If we can get
Interesting.
sunlight first thing in the morning,
Wow.
it's going to reset that melatonin cortisol cycle. Okay. Hands down, the biggest environmental factor that we can have is exposure to sunlight. So it's going to, one, reset the cortisol melatonin cycle. Two, it's going to give us that major dose of vitamin D that we're going to obviously need on a regular basis. And it's going to give us that energy to continue to start up in a really great way. So
Mm.
exposure to sunlight, number 1. Number 2, that we would really want to pay attention to is the people that we're around.
Ooh.
People and connections to people. It was a really interesting study again. Is What do you think was the number 1 indicator of longevity?
Um, value quality of relationships, family and
Wow.
friends. Only
Well
because
done.
you had the teaser. I normally would have said something like, I don't drink alcohol or
Yeah.
this or that, but because of the context, I had a little I had to cheat a little.
It's so awesome. So awesome one. But but you're right. And but there's a one word that you said that was key, quality.
Mm,
Quality of relationships. That was the key. That was the key metric.
wow.
Creator of quality relationships led to the longest area of longevity. So in our environment, it's the amount of quality relationships we have, the amount of exposure to those people. That's why during this pandemic, it's been so hard for a lot of people. It's because you've been just isolated from those people who truly mean something to you, the people who have grown and been a part of your life for so long. And that's why a lot of that is starting to create an issue for a lot of
Yeah.
people. So the number two thing, but sunlight, one, two, people in your environment, the quality of those people in your environment, the quality of questions they're asking you, the quality of closeness that you're feeling, the quality of support that you're feeling. That's why, again, when you're building teams, it's so important. It's so important to build not just teams that you like, but teams that are going to challenge you, teams that are going to um, uh, teams that are going to challenge you, teams that are going to support you, teams that are going to help you grow. That's what, again, within our window, that is another key point. And number three, if we want a third one on top of this,
Okay.
is it's really going to be again our ability to move, our spatial awareness. Any times that we feel cramped, any times that we feel messy, any times that we feel not home, uncomfortable in our space, it's going to continue to keep us on edge. And when we are on edge, what happens is it produces that massive amount of anxiety within us. And that anxiety is an immediate killer of that HRV, killer of that motivation,
Oh
killer
man.
of that mental clarity.
Yep.
So we got sunlight is one, quality of those people around us is two, and then
Okay.
that spatial awareness is three, all in that environment.
Wow. No, those are big wins that I know I definitely can optimize in my realm for damn sure. To lower yeah, just that continuous anxiety. Um Jacob, Jackie, thank you guys that are joining us today. Looks like the LinkedIn shenanigans continues, but appreciate your support. I see you guys coming through and all the
Oh,
lurkers
come
hanging
on,
with us.
LinkedIn.
Thank you. Always
Come on,
something.
LinkedIn. Come on, LinkedIn.
Our Microsoft overlords apparently do not invest a whole lot in the streaming platform.
But even, I mean, you look at what the Schwer was saying is in terms of reducing stress,
Mhm.
and that they've reduced their stress so much this year, is that a lot of that has come back to because you've been in your home. You've probably been able to reduce your commute. Maybe the people you were around that were causing you stress, you're not around them as much. You're the spatial awareness that you're around. You now are in the comfort of your own home, and then you can be exposed to more sunlight. So you've probably taken care of those three things just by accident. But now having that cognitive
Mm.
awareness around it, you can truly make the choices in a little bit more of a intentional way, in an intentional manner. Um, and then now coming into those 8 pillars that we were talking about that truly affect HRV, when we come and take a look at it: nutrition, hydration, movement, uh, environment, immune function, uh, stress management, mindset. When you take a look at those, oh, and sleep. How could I forget
Yeah.
sleep? That's the eighth one. I only hit 7. But when you take a look at those, the big three that I've seen from working with both in my practice and our business of over about 1,500 different people and companies over the last year,
Wow.
and over 5,000 in the last 3 years, is really comes down to these three. One, hands down, always starts with your mindset. When your mindset is in the right space, and Elise is going to take you guys through mindset, and it's not the woo-woo mindset. This is all data-driven. Remember, it's data-driven energy. So she's made it applicable of how you create a number, something quantifiable, something you can strive for in mindset. So mindset is the biggest one, and we're going to save that and hit that later. Number two, sleep. Again, it's amazing what happens with sleep and your ability to have that energy, sustainable awareness, and impact on HRV with sleep. And then number three, I mean, this is a toss up. Everything becomes, I want to say everything at this point,
Yeah.
but it's, I would say like, it comes back to what do you feel yourself with? And that can be, again, where it comes down to the quality of food you put in the body, and the hydration that you're putting in as well, because your body can go about 5 days, 6 days without food. It can go about 3 days without water, but it can't go 3 minutes without air. So what are you putting into your body? I think that all comes into, you could call it fuel, but it all comes into that one entity. So that would be number three.
Damn. Love it. Love it. No, brilliant to simplify things to those low hanging fruit. There's obviously limitless optimization to get pulled here, but I feel like that's how people actually get paralyzed in not making any progress, as they think of all 40 things at once and then don't end up making any progress, which
Totally.
I think alludes into what Jacob was mentioning here a second ago, the Schwer, the perfectionist paralysis. That's kind of where I always was expecting or thinking I needed to jump into people expecting it to be perfect. So I didn't take any action at all until everything was ready. And whether it's your life or your relationship or your community, it's small iterative steps that we can make towards that progress, that I think you've really simplified with some of those lower hanging fruit there.
I love what he was saying there about that perfectionist attitude, because so often and again, this is why it comes back to mindset a lot of the time, and Elise will really allude to this, is because it hasn't been tied to something that truly means something to you yet. So it's one thing to just start grabbing and like, hey, I'm going to start this diet, or I'm going to go to bed at this time, or I'm going to start drinking this much water, or I'm going to do this. And the reason it's not sustainable is because it's not hitting on a true value that you have. It's not hitting on something that truly means something to you. And if you can tie it to something that means something to you, be it your goals in business, let's tie it to that for a second. You have the goal of making your first million, of serving 5,000 people, whatever it may be. If that is truly purposeful to you and truly the core root of what's going on from a mindset standpoint, you're going to do whatever it takes to get there, and that becomes a part of it. But if you're just like, hey, I'm going to try this because I think it's going to help me perform better, that's really the whatever. And he again, he's right. He goes, I really almost had to care less. Like, I'm good at my job, but I need to take better care of myself and be a little selfish. And so I get it. I truly understand that, because you have to go back to focus. And it's, I'm going to almost challenge him. It's not that he had to care less. He had to care more about himself. He had to care more about what he was putting into what was there. So if we think about stop managing time, but managing energy, all of a sudden it doesn't matter the time in which we're spending at work. No, it doesn't matter the time that we're spending doing our social media. It doesn't matter the time we're spending any of these things. If we have a better energy equation, so that we are able to put the energy towards things that truly matter to us and that truly get us to the point in which we want to excel at.
Boom. There it is. Yeah, that's the energy equation we've been referring to and mentioning you guys over and over. That really pulled me towards Justin's world. His theory, his perspective, is really the most practical I have seen of all guru professionals, nutritionists, health. Like there's so many perspectives and angles that you can complicate this, but ultimately it comes down to our time and our energy. That's all we have in this world, to either consume or to create, to give or to take. And you've really simplified this equation to help us maximize this energy. So yeah, it's been amazing for you to share the insights and intel from your world, because it's one of those compounding things. If you can get 10% more energy per day, how much does that really add up to over time? How many more people can we impact over time because of that extra energy? And
I'm even
that's
gonna
where it all
build on that.
starts.
I'm even going to build on that because because you literally reminded me of something that 3 or 4 of my clients said last week. Was they were like, Justin, before we started, I take a look at this, and I was operating at about 50% of me all the time, 7 days a week.
Mm.
And I don't care how good you are. At 50% of me, I'm not good to anybody. So Jeff Bezos, 50% of him is not good to anybody. So think about this. People are trying to do more with less of them, just because they think doing more is what you're supposed to do.
Mm.
Instead of, let's do less with more of you. And so all of a sudden they go, wow, I'm doing better quality work. I'm getting more done. I'm being more efficient. And all I've done was added one extra day a week where I feel like I'm 80% or greater.
Wow.
Where all of a sudden you have been doing, I'm going to say this again because I want people to really grasp onto this. You've been doing more with less of you. So operating at 80% or greater, less than one time a week, one, maybe 2 times a week. But now imagine that you're doing less with more of you, greater efficiency, greater productivity. And all of a sudden you're doing 3, 4, 5 days of 80% or greater of yourself. What happens then? That's when the true outcomes happen that you're looking for. And it's not even about working smarter instead of harder. It's managing your energy and not your time. It's that conceptual change. The moment we get and understand that it's all about energy, it's all about the energy we have to show up with, we're going to be able to sell ourselves, our idea, our product, our mission, our cars, our homes, whatever it is that we are trying to sell, because everybody's a seller. Everybody's selling something. But that is going to be what truly attaches to people, because when people buy, when they buy an idea, when they buy into an idea, when they buy into a mission, when they buy a product, a service, whatever, they've gone through an emotional connection and they've gone through an intellectual connection. There was a study that was done. When you connect with somebody on an emotional level, you are 85% more likely to get the sale, because they will immediately justify that intellectual connection as to why they need to do it. And the way that you connect with them emotionally is 100% through energy.
Love it. Love it. Love it. No, I was having the same mind-blowing moment here, Jacob. I'm glad
we'll do the Kramer,
If I were a true pro streamer, I'd have the GIF loaded up. I need a GIF board, like a soundboard of GIFs to trigger.
Oh,
A mind blowing. No, this is amazing to see this equation and the practical benefits of it. I think that's really the most critical part I've seen. Is it's easy to get lost in the theory and the woo woo and all of that. But ultimately, what does this mean at the end of the day for results and generating impact? And it's all about that energy you're mentioning. So yeah, this has been brilliant. If anybody wants to sneak in some questions here, we are in overtime, but feel free to sneak in. Apparently had a little bit of a VIP sesh today with y'all. So appreciate you jumping in. And Jacob, as you suggested, definitely we'll be slicing up some of these mic drops into micro content. There were some golden nuggets there, too brilliant to pass up. So we've been going through these 8 pillars. Today was environment and stress management. So what is the homework we have, I guess, for keeping a track into next week? And then what do we have to explore next week?
yeah. So for the environment stuff going forward, again, I want you guys to focus on the big 3. 1, getting sunlight exposure the first 30 minutes of the sun rising. And just be consciously aware of the difference that you feel when you go out in the sun and get that and when you don't. And it could be an overcast day, it could be a rainy day, it could be a snowy day, it could be whatever. But still just try and get that sunlight exposure the first 30 minutes of the sunrise. Because regardless, the sun's coming up, you just might not be able to see it. So 30 minutes of sunlight exposure, okay? Number 2 is take a conscious inventory of those people that are around you. Okay, of the people that you're exposing yourself to. Are you constantly exposing yourself to your brother in the morning when he's frustrated and upset and he's tired and he's getting mad at you and that's how you're starting your day? Change up who you're around. Don't go and get exposed to him first thing in the morning. Do you need to have a conversation with somebody? Do you need to, you have that control. So who are you around and when are you around them? And third, your spatial awareness. Be aware of where you've set up your office. What's around you in your office? Is it cluttered? Is it messy? Is it dirty? Is it noisy? Is it small? Is it tight? Is it enclosed? Is it stand up? Is it sit down? Is it kneeling? Is it half kneel? Is it big? Is it small? Is it cluttered? All of these things, be aware of your spatial awareness. And so those are the 3 big things that I want you guys to take away and that you really want to dive into before we go into next week.
Brilliant.
And Travis, what are we diving into next week?
Good question. We are diving into dramatic pause.
I had a feeling like it was
immune function. Of course, immune function is exactly what I was going to say.
Immune function, and then after that is our 2, just so that the audience knows, immune function, and then right into our 2 mindsets, and then into our DNA. Is that correct?
That is what we have set up. Immune function, mindset, and then finale.
Wow,
we're going to be close. A little bit of the whole shebang. Yeah, you guys, went all in. I got like DNA, genetic testing. So for the data nerds, there's even a higher like level of nerdiness to unpack beyond just what we've discovered on the wearables. So lots in store for next month. But yeah, immune function, which I guess is going to be quite topical and relevant for the year we're in. But that's what we'll be tuning into next week.
Love it, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Justin, for sharing your time and talent and expertise with us. We appreciate y'all. We'll catch you next week for another episode of Build a Beast.